My name's Verity. I'm an artist from a fine art sculpture background, which I think is quite important because the art world in which I graduated in 2003 was a really different beast to what it is now. And I think that's really shaped the way that I work. So very few galleries were interested in public practice, socially engaged and embedded models and research-driven modes of production. And I kind of freaked out a bit. So I'd like to say I had a plan, but I didn't really. And this is, I think, key to how I work now, embracing not having a plan. And in the absence of a model that I felt worked for me, I sought to try and create my own plan. So I work all over the place, mainly on the edges of the city in outer London. I'm developing new work in Detroit as well, so there's an international flavour there. But for the past 14 years, I've been fairly embedded within the London Borough of Barking and Dagenham. This is a diagram I did recently for 10 years of practice to try and piece some of it together. I'm just going to flick through loads of slides and then play a video, but not really talk much about the slides. So I'm committed to long periods of engagement, close looking and testing before actually committing to final outcomes, which is quite hard sometimes when working in a really public context to actually communicate what the work you're going to do, to actually get buy-in from clients and commissioners that you want to. So it's about communicating methodology and process rather than this fixed outcome. And when I say long periods of engagement, I mean I'm really growing old with Barking and Dagenham. I was 24 when I first started working there. I'm 39 now. Another project I'm doing in Thamesmead, I've been there for 4 years. And again, this isn't really a strategy, it's just how I work. And for want of a better word, it's really underpinned by lurking and responding. So what happens when you actually stay in a place and your practice evolves and changes with the place versus dropping in, chipping off, popping up, popping down, next. So all of my commissions pretty much have been self-generated, bar a few, and developed with a variety of stakeholders as clients, demolition companies, developers, local authority. But the local authority model is one that I've been most interested in historically, but working at the intersection. So within Barking and Dagenham, the period that I've worked there, the culture team has been deleted, the art team was deleted. So I find myself moving between the cracks, working with planning policy, regeneration, heritage, libraries, and sort of really thinking about what that means. So I try to interrogate this notion of public. Hang on, I missed a paragraph. So I'm really interested in what the role and potential of the artist within a regeneration context is, could and should be. So the lived experience of regeneration from a resident's perspective, who often feel like regeneration is being something that's done to them, right through to the way it's communicated on hoardings. So I try to interrogate the notion of public in its widest transient and potential future versions of itself, mindful that work needs to make sense to not just those that are privy to processes, but those that experience a stage of it, the outcome, or see the work in a separate context, away from the place that it responds to, not being overly reliant on me telling you a story about a place, in a place. So regeneration, participation, consultation, collaboration, community, engagement, legacy, resilience, public, placemaking. These are all buzzwords that I just see getting chucked all over the place on hoardings, in funding applications, in artist briefs and in clients' desires. So I guess what I try to do in my work is really test what these words really mean and how working in such a way can inform and shape not just the actual built environment, but what the experience of living and passing through it is and potentially can be. So the artist isn't a social worker. We can't fix places or make them better, which assumes, it assumes that places are broken and communities are broken if they need to be fixed. Sorry. We see artists quite often in places stretched in all directions, trying to fill the gaps that have been left by austerity against the backdrop of one of the biggest housing crises. And I just don't know how I feel about that. I often find myself stood between local authorities as a conduit, different departments and communities, demystifying and decoding jargon, giving a platform to residents in places where they live and don't. So brokering these relationships, which has actually become a really important part of the way that I work. Next page. So I'll whiz through because I've got my timings wrong. But on to an actual proposal. Oh yes, this is I quite like doing diagrams as a way to scramble my brain. So this is thinking about how I'm working in a really hyper-local context and how this zooming in and zooming out can make sense in local, national, all these different contexts. I'm thinking about that a lot. And I made a little video, which I'll show you while I talk about the next bit. If I can press play. It's just a little move around Barking and Dagenham. So Claire, in her email, and thanks for the invitation as well. I think it's really good to be on this last all-female panel in good company. So to present a speculative idea based on current or previous work of how artists could or should work in 21st century new towns. So I've been thinking about that, and it's something that I've recently been doing, trying to make proposals to a developer and a consortium. And I guess when making proposals, what I'm talking about in my practice, what that really means is I'm interested in residency models of practice, but the more informal residency models rather than a more formalised one. I'm interested in how I can operate between the cracks. Where possible, I always try to create my own brief or work with a client or commissioner to rewrite the brief, revisit the brief. How we can embrace failure, how we can take risks, how you can own your own politics, how you can be committed to both high-quality processes and outcomes, not just really great processes and then really crap artwork at the end of it. So I'm going to read out an email thread, which is a semi-fictional scenario sort of underpinned by real events, meetings and emails. Hi Verity, great to meet you this morning. It was really great to get an insight into the work that you've made and also to find that you have a street named after you in my hometown. We were so blown away with the breadth of work you've produced about the borough. We loved it, whilst critiquing the regeneration cycle at all moments. Please keep in touch, and as mentioned, send over a couple of ideas of how we could work together, as it would be really great to have you on board, ! Kind regards, Potential Commissioner. So that was 27th of July 2017. 31st of July 2017. Dear Potential Commissioner, really good to meet you and share my work with you. I've got a number of ideas of things that I'd love to do at X Place. The main one, I suppose, is being a long-term artist in residence for the site and the development. I'll write up more what I think this might look like or involve and send over some examples of where I think this has worked and failed, but I just thought I'd throw it out there as my best-case scenario. By long-term, I mean I'm committed to getting old with this residency. What does a 10-year residency look like for you? 15 years, how could you handle that? What would the value of having a long-term artist in residence who could feed into all aspects of the development? Even the parts that are more challenging and potentially hold you to account. What is the public realm? What is private? Where can generosity be found within the scheme? Which spaces could be the most democratic? How does this development talk to the rest of the borough? Who are the residents? How much power do you genuinely want to transfer to residents? How much do things cost? Last page. Obviously, it would involve various tangible creative outputs, made strands to be confirmed and revisited at different milestones, but basically an opportunity to really occupy the site creatively, react, look, collect, document, respond, critique, make, shake things up, let them drop down, input over a number of years. I enjoyed the conversations surrounding development hoardings, road names that should be and could be more than just the factory that they now sit on. Facade treatments, placemaking, what does that even mean, etc., and so on. I genuinely believe the key is creating a site-specific formula. I thought you were actually showing my 5-minute marker for the development that looks at past, present, and speculates to the future, has a dialogue with what already exists, views the site as the icon, as a real place that's dripping in history and life, and embraces the very specific geography in which we find it in. I don't know what that formula might be, I'm just pushing it out there. And I think it will take a little time to scratch the surface and reveal the value before reverting to these usual devices of commissioning a cultural strategy, a public art framework, placemaking strategy, or whatever it might be called. Really looking forward to discussing this further with you. Verity. Silence. So speaking on panel with MD of said company on 4 separate occasions over 2018. Verity, what happened? How come we're not working with you yet? We really need to get you down. Silence. Workshop with same MD, April 2019. Verity, what happened? How come we're not working with you yet? We need to get you down. Oh, you know what? I emailed you a proposal as requested, Potential Commissioner, and no one bothered to reply. 1st of May 2019. Verity, hello. I think we corresponded some time back. I've been asked to follow up on a conversation about completing one of your commissions in X Place. Hope this makes sense to you. It'd be really good to meet in any case, and so would you be able to meet at some point over the next month to discuss? Thanks, Potential Commissioner. So the current status is ongoing. Thank you. Oh, no, I've got one more picture to show you. If the video will allow it. Yeah. So I've got a road named after me in Dudley. My dad happened to be able to name some roads. So me, my big sister, and my brother have roads named after us. My little sister wasn't born. So I've really always been quite obsessed about this language of how places come from. And actually, when I was doing my foundation course, I did a project where I went to try and meet the residents of the street to let them know that it was me. And they weren't that interested. Thank you.